Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to talk a little bit about houses today. So we hear about houses a lot in astrology. Perhaps the three main things are planets, signs, and houses. So in Vedic astrology, there are a few houses that are just known as difficult houses. So as soon as a planet is there, as soon as we see a planet sitting in this house, we immediately know that there's some difficulty to that planet, even if all the other things are good going on with it. And so these houses are called Dusthana houses because Du means literally bad, at least from what I've learned, and Sthana means place, or place or standing. And it's kind of related to the word stira, which means fixed, like the word for the fixed sign, stira. So sthana is a place, a fixed place. So it's bad places, basically, is what that means. So what are these Doosthana places in the chart? What are these bad places? They are the 6th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house. Those are the Doosthanas, the bad places of the chart. Doesn't mean like completely bad, and of course bad is a relative term itself. But what it means is these are like the weakest houses or the weakest spaces in the whole circle. And so when you have a planet in those weak spaces, it's weaker and it doesn't do as well. So there's going to be problems with it. Problems are normally considered bad. Hence, the bad place of the chart. So let's start with the 6th house. The 6th house is a Dusthana because it has to do with... The 6th house is really just the house of using your intelligence to improve life and to solve the problems of life and to make life better. Like how the 6th sign, Virgo, is the sign of the harvest and of using our intelligence to serve and serving others. Harvest, harvest is the perfect way to explain that because it's using our intelligence to help us survive winter. If we didn't do that, we would die in winter. And if you ever had a garden, you can grow a garden, but if you don't know how to harvest, you tend to lose out. If you don't harvest things, can them, dry them, so all that process takes work, it's tedious. People like to just plant the seeds and let the garden grow. That's the easier part. But the canning and the drying of the herbs you grew, and then, the sowing, gathering all the seeds and saving seeds and all that stuff, that's all the tedious stuff. And so the 6th house has a tedious energy quality to it. That's one way you can put it. And it's the house of having to use your intelligence to solve problems. And so there has to be problems there to begin with. So it's a house of problems. It's also a house of delays, and it's a house of enemies and enmity and health issues. So we can see why that's a tough place. And then the 8th house is the house of chronic health issues, like diseases that are going to kill you, whereas 6th house is more health issues that will come up and go away, typically. 8th house is more chronic health issues. The 8th house is death. Deaths are, of course, considered bad things. 8th house is the house of breaks and changes and vulnerabilities. Most of the time we don't like to deal with our vulnerabilities, and so that is, of course, a bad place for a planet to be in because it's going to be breaking down a lot, where it's going to be feeling vulnerable more often. So if you have the moon in the 8th house, you're just emotionally more vulnerable as a person. If you have your sun in the 8th house, your vitality is maybe more vulnerable as a person. All right, and then the 12th house is the 3rd and the final Doosthana house. And the 12th has to do, it's the final house, so it's the house of letting go. And so letting go of things is typically, unless you wanted to let go of it, it's typically a bad thing. 12th house isn't all bad though. It's the house of resolutions, and So it doesn't always have to be that you let go of something in a bad way, but typically letting go of things is a bad thing. And it's also a house of energy leaving the body and of expenses, hospitalization, and loss, and things just like disappearing, finishing up their karmas and going away is the 12th house. Yeah, it's a house that typically, planets in the 12th house, we typically tend to have to put a lot into them, and then we still don't get much back out of them. So, yeah, those are the 3 houses that are really the toughest. And so Vedic astrologers have known for a long time that, excuse me, say maybe your sun is exalted, but it's in the 8th house. So there is a problem there. There is some sort of vulnerability there, or there will be breaks and changes. Maybe you'll break some bones or something because, of course, the sun represents bones. Say it's the 6th house, and we've got Jupiter in the 6th house. Maybe you get health issues due to fat, due to eating bad fats or something, because Jupiter rules fats and lipids. And it being in the 6th house means that there's a problem that you need to use your intelligence to solve and to figure this out. And so you have to study and find out why you're not feeling well. And then you find out that, oh, it's because I'm eating canola oil instead of the good fats like coconut oil or something. Whatever it is. It's Jupiter in the 6th, that could be one thing. And then, the 12th house it can be a good place for spirituality, but it has to do with letting go and sacrifice. So say the sun's in the 12th house, you'll be a more exhausted person, a person with less vitality. Your vitality seems to be like letting go of a lot in life. Or say it's like Mars in the 12th house, then maybe some sort of maybe you're having to learn to let go of your drive, your sense of ambition and drive and things. Or maybe even an accident happens that causes you to be put in surgery or in hospitalization in the 12th house, because Mars can relate to surgery and the 12th house relates to hospitalization. And then maybe there are expenses that come about and you get a bill for that's like a lot of money. And so that's where the expenses factor would come in of the 12th house. I mean, this plays out in a lot of different ways, and you have to look at the rest of the chart for that. But it's really, really important to know this. And you learn this when you first start doing astrology, but I think it takes time and experience for it to sink in. But it's definitely sunk in for me at this point. And so I just felt like making a short video saying, don't forget about those Dusthana houses. And even when a planet is really strong and in an adult state and exalted or something, it can still have difficulties if it's in a Dusthana. It could just be weaker, or it could be that events in life strain it more. You know what I mean? Because those houses are just strained areas and where the energy doesn't flow easily. So that's pretty much it. I think you guys should pay attention to those houses a lot when it comes to looking at the problems in the chart. And why are those houses, why are they the bad places? Aside from what I already explained. Here's a little drawing of a North Indian style chart. And so this first box is the horizon. And then second box is what's about to become the horizon. And so then the 12th box is what just rose. And it's just sort of lingering there. And so it's sort of like, it just had its thing. It just rose, you know what I mean? And so it's not a strong place. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's kind of something that intuitively makes sense if you look at it in the sky. And in the same way, the 6th and the 8th house are the points, if I show you in the chart here, the 6th and the 8th are the points on the other side of sunset, the 2 spaces above and below the horizon. And so the horizon in the west is the death. That's where we die. It's where the sun dies, and that's why the west is the land of the dead. Also, like in Stairway to Heaven, when Robert Plant says that there's a feeling he gets when he looks to the west, and his spirit is crying for leaving. And that's why, you know, in Greek mythology, they go to the land of Hades is the land of the west, and in pretty much every single mythology ever, the land of the west is the land of the dead. So that's where we die. That's why the 7th is a Maraca house, a killer house as well. But the 6th and the 8th is, the 6th is what's about, the 8th is what's about to die, and the 6th is what just did die. And so they're both in these weak places about to set or have just set. You see what I'm saying? So there's sort of a weak, a bad, or a lower energy to them as well. Another way to look at it is if the ascendant is you, then those areas don't get to you as easily. They're the hardest to get to you. If the ascendant is in the east, I'm just facing off east for me right now, then this whatever planet's in the 12th can't connect. It has to go all the way around. You know what I mean? It's the furthest from that. And same with the 8th and the 6th. They're just not quite in line with your chart. Cool. Hope that example helps you guys. Thanks, y'all. Talk to you soon.